I was really excited to see this movie. I'm a big fan of the original, no matter what version I'm watching, and I was really juiced to see what they could do with all the new CGI and all the new directors and writers out now, especially with the huge string of long-awaited movies that turned out to be crap because they let the wrong people make them. And I was mostly excited because Ridley Scott would not be directing it. He took a producer's chair with about 24 other people, which I don't blame him because I would want a little bit of creative control over the sequel to arguably the best movie I've ever made. And whenever I see a project like this that I think I'll be interested in, I go over to IMDb and I look and see who's writing and directing it. Because you can slap all the pretty shit you want together, but if you don't have a good writer or a good director, your movie's going to be dog shit. I was pleasantly surprised to see Denis Villeneuve directing it, who did Sicario and Enemy, and Arrival, which is a prime example of why you need a good writer on staff, because Eric Heiserer, who wrote Lights Out and Final Destination 5, turned that movie into a goddamn mess. I'm just not a huge Amy Adams fan, I suppose. It's like they told her to run around and look like you're on Xanax and depressed and about to have an emotional breakdown the entire time. And they led with the kid dying, which to me is an emotional cheap shot at getting the audience captivated and invested. The entire premise of a language that makes thinking non-linear and you can see the past, future, and the present. What the fuck ever. It was a fucking alien movie about fonts. I haven't seen all of Villeneuve's films, but so far Arrival is the only one that didn't really do it for me. For 2049 screenplay, we had Hampton Franchu, who did the original Blade Runner, along with Michael Green, who's responsible for Logan and the Green Lantern Corps. Yeah. But Logan was good. I'm already worried a little bit at this point. And then we had Hans Zimmer working on Will Fish's original score for the original film, which, if you haven't been living under a fucking rock and you've seen Inception and you've seen Christopher Nolan's Batman series, you know that Hans Zimmer makes some great fucking scores. And I mean like literally like great fucking scores. Have you ever banged a girl to the Batman soundtrack? It's incredible. I highly recommend it. And you slap in a little Roger Deakins there for some cinematography, and it's shaping up to be a pretty good film. So when I finally got a chance to go and see it, I did. And I'm gonna spoil the shit out of this movie for you. So this is your one and final warning. Are they gone? Did they leave? Alright, here we go. Spoiler-wary people just annoy the shit out of me. Hey man, you seen that new Blade Runner movie? I think there's very few movies out there that if you heard the spoiler for, you just don't need to go see them. Memento, Shutter Island. I think if a twist is all your movie has going for it, then it's probably not a very good movie. Looking at you, M. Night Shyamalan, but I digress. Coming out of the theater, I wanted to like it, but all I could think about was how numb my ass was after the 2 hour and 44-minute runtime, which isn't out of character for Villeneuve. It's like he wants to give an equal amount of screen time to the thoughts and emotions coming out of somebody's face as he does actual dialogue. But like, how long does it take to show an android having an identity crisis? Gotta find the replicant boy. I might be the replicant boy. I'm a real boy. Wait, I'm not the replicant boy? Boom, nailed it. No, it's actually something I really appreciate about Villeneuve's style, and it really worked well for Ryan Gosling's K. But I feel like you could have shaved some time off of the long zoom scene shots and still hit every note you wanted to make the script work in 2 hours. It was so long that I forgot what was happening, to where when I came out of the theater I was like, what? It wasn't until I got home and explained the movie to my girlfriend, my very patient, loving girlfriend, line by line, that I realized that movie was awesome. I was completely bamboozled by the trailer. I thought it was going to be a pretty straightforward story of Kay, the new Blade Runner, hunting down Deckard, the old Blade Runner, because Deckard holds the key to a longer life for replicants, and Wallace, the corporation that replaced Tyrell, wants that secret desperately for their new breed of replicants. But to my surprise, they took it in a much better direction, with elements I hadn't even thought about for replicants, and ultimately further and deepened Blade Runner's ponderance on what it is to be human. Kay, the blade-running replicant played by Ryan Gosling, is charged with hunting down his own kind, and in the process, he stumbles across the bones of Rachel, you remember, Deckard's highly advanced sex doll from the first one, and learns that Tyrell designed Rachel to reproduce, which has huge implications for humanity. If the replicants can reproduce, then humans' days are numbered, and for the Wallace Corporation, if they're able to design replicants to reproduce, that means it'll take less resources to produce his slave race. Kay and his superiors are deftly aware of the implications of this, and so he is set with the task of finding the child, and if it isn't already, destroying it. Jared Leto's Wallace, also known as 30 Seconds to God Complex, is also aware of this information, and he sends his super hot, psychotic replicant named Love, played by Sylvia Hoeks, out to obtain the genetic code by any means necessary, and to kill anyone or anything that gets in her way. And after a lot of long lingering shots, character development, and exposition, Kay starts to get the idea that he might be the child they're looking for. Replicants are given memories as a baseline to process human emotions, and he knows that it's illegal to implant real memories into a replicant's brain. So when he gets it confirmed by the girl who is contracted to make memories for replicants, that his memories are in fact real memories, it further solidifies the idea that he is the one. This causes him to lose his shit. And I gotta say, Ryan's performance is easily the best thing about this movie. You can see him trying to keep his emotions at bay because he's a replicant and he knows that they don't matter, but every time he gets a key piece of evidence that points to him being the one, you see his heart drop and his fear come through, until finally when he gets it confirmed that he is the one, he explodes in a spectacular fashion, and it's just great to watch. All the while, Kay's yappy fucking hologram girlfriend named Joy, played forgettably by Ana de Armas, continually goads him into thinking he is the real boy, and he keeps telling her everything he's discovering, essentially talking into a device made by Wallace Corp. Like, do they not have corporate espionage or the NSA in this universe? Why are you telling her all this shit, you dense motherfucker? She's gonna fuck you, dude. She's gonna fuck you. And I don't mean like buy you a hooker and then overlay her hologram onto the hooker like she did earlier. Yeah, that happened. It was weird. Thankfully, they didn't go that route, and she ends up becoming Kay's moral center, kind of his companion through the whole thing, and you can tell that he's madly in love with her because they were both created. And then she's like, well, since you're a real boy, your name should be Joe. And Kay's like, don't call me that. Okay, fine, you can call me that. Being a replicant and operating as a Blade Runner in the police force, he is required to take these baseline tests every time he returns from a mission to make sure that he is still all there and not going crazy like the old replicants did. And because of all the stress of the revelations, he fails his baseline test. Kay's boss, played by the phenomenal Robin Wright, is kind of like Kay's only friend. She's the only human who doesn't sneer and spit at him and call him a fucking skin job every time he walks by. And they have a cordial, almost mentor-like relationship, even though she kind of treats him like a house slave all the time. Earlier in the film, she drops a key piece of wisdom on him, which is, we're all just looking for something that's real. After Kay takes that into consideration, he successfully wards off an attempt by her to have sex with him. What happens if I finish that bottle? I gotta get back to work. And upon failing his baseline test, she gives him 48 hours to get out of town before he's hunted down and retired. Kay told her he found the child and did what needed to be done, and I got the feeling that she understood that he was in fact the child, so she gives him the last location of Deckard to try and get whatever answers he needed from him, and finally bust our Harrison Ford nut 2 hours into the movie. It kind of pisses me off when movies make trailers with all this Harrison Ford in it, and then all we get is 1/3 of a movie with Harrison Ford in it. So we finally get to Harrison Ford living out in the Nevada desert, raising bees and living in a casino with a fully stocked alcohol bar for the last 30 years. And we get some classic Deckard quipping while punching Ryan Gosling in the face. It's pretty amazing. And then they have a talk, and it's mainly like Harrison Ford going, and Ryan Gosling going, "Why did you leave me?" And Deckard has no idea what he's talking about. He thinks he's just some Blade Runner who's come after him to kill him for what he knows. Apparently they've tried before. But Deckard reveals that after he and Rachel fled and became pregnant, they hooked up with an underground group of replicants and hatched a plan to keep the existence of the child a secret. Deckard's role in this was to get as far away from the child as possible, as if the authorities were looking for anybody, they'd be looking for him. And he was to go back and erase any evidence of Rachel or the child's existence. After all of that was done, Deckard's role was clear. Stay off the grid and out of the way, because the replicants were planning something. And before that could be explained, here comes Love, busting in, whooping everybody's ass, and after damn near killing Kay, she pulls out his hologram girlfriend stick and crushes it. This was a very emotional moment for Kay, but a very cathartic one for me. So Love and her minions throw Deckard into the back of the car like an unruly 3-year-old and then leave Kay there to die. And then the credits roll and that's the end of the fucking movie. Just kidding. Love flies Deckard over to Wallace Corp, where Wallace, also known as Droney McBlindyface, tries to entice Deckard into giving him the location of the replicant child. And he does so by presenting Deckard with an exact replica of his futuristic sex doll from the first one, Rachel. When the Rachel reveal happened, I was like, she looked incredible. It wasn't weird looking like Leia or Tarkin in Rogue One. This looked legit. Wasn't enough for my man Deckard though. He was like, bruh, mine had green eyes. Fuck this bitch. At which point she is promptly killed and Deckard is taken off to be tortured or some shit. Kay wakes up in the hands of what looks to be the group of replicants that helped Rachel and Deckard escape. They proceed to reveal their entire plan to him, which is to bring forth the replicant child and bring her into the light to lead an uprising of replicants. Kay's initial reaction was, "Wait, what?" To which the replicants responded with, "Oh, you thought it was you. Yeah, we all thought it was us at one point or another. She put those memories in us so that we would all find each other and start this resistance." So guess who it is? Guess who it is? It's the contractor girl that confirmed his memory. It's her. Guess who's in the replicant crowd? The hooker that his holographic girlfriend made him bone. Yeah, all right. Happy ending, everybody. Happy ending. We can all go home now. And nothing bad is gonna happen. And then they give him his first mission as part of the resistance, which is to find and kill Deckard. Because Deckard is the only one that knows they exist and would be their undoing if he gave up any information about them. And probably because he's a huge drunk dick. Kay is kind of devastated at this point. He starts wandering the street, contemplating his next move. And I interpret it as, he's always wanted to be human. That's why he's a Blade Runner. Maybe he felt that destroying his own kind separated him from the other replicants and brought him closer to his peers and closer to being human as a whole. So the prospect of actually being a human, even though it presented an extreme amount of danger with it, was everything he ever wanted. And it was then taken away from him. He ends up standing in front of a giant hologram of an advertisement for Wallace's girlfriend stick, named Joy. At the bottom of this advertisement reads something to the effect of, "I'll do whatever you want and say whatever you want to hear." The hologram then kneels down and looks at him. She has black eyes, no clothes, blue hair, almost unrecognizable. But then she points at him right in the face and goes, "You look like a Joe." It's this incredibly intense, quiet moment where you see everything wash away from him, as the realization comes that everything he has done his entire life has been a huge fucking lie. He has told himself to deny what he really is and to have a purpose. The replicant leader had told him dying for the right cause is the most human thing you can do. And I think in that moment, facing himself, He decided that it wasn't flesh and blood that made you a human, and it's not even being human that matters. The first replicant he kills in the film tells him that he'll never transcend being a replicant because he's never witnessed a miracle. And the miracle wasn't a replicant giving birth or even the child herself, but the fact that something that was made in a factory could feel something like love, that the bonds between us are what makes us worth personhood. Kay remembers what his boss told him about looking for something real, and Kay decides that what's real is love, and that is the cause worth dying for. Since his shell of a life was basically over, he felt he could serve one final purpose in protecting that cause from those who would kill it or pervert it for their own personal gain, and he sets out to rescue Deckard, not to kill him for the replicant cause, but to reunite him with his daughter. From here we get an excellent fight sequence, with a resolute Kay looking more like a Terminator, fighting it out with Wallace's crazy psycho hot sex droid, who wounds Kay pretty bad, but he's ultimately victorious over her and rescues Deckard from the sinking cloud car. Kay flies Deckard over to the facility where his daughter makes her memories, and she kinda lives in a big glass bubble because she has immunodeficiencies and can't come into contact with people. But I think it's really because the replicants were keeping her from the world that way, in isolation. They get out of the flying car, and Deckard looks at Kay and says, "But who am I to you?" And Kay just smiles, knowing he's done the good deed, and says, "Go see your daughter." So Deckard, without a word, goes up the steps into the building. Kay is left there standing alone, and he opens his jacket and we can see that it's all soaked in blood on the inside, and Kay doesn't have long to live. Kay looks down at his hand and catches a little bit of snow in it, kind of reflecting over all the things that have happened. And knowing that he's finally finished his job, he goes and he sits down on the steps, he lays back, and he passes away. All the while, the Tears in the Rain soundtrack is playing from the first Blade Runner when Roy passes away. It was a really cool callback to the first one. Deckard goes into the facility where he sees his daughter behind the big pane of glass. She walks up to him and Deckard is overcome with joy and everything like that, and he puts his hand up on the glass, and then the screen cuts to black and the credits start to roll. Yeah. You know, I left a lot of shit out and I probably messed a lot of stuff up, but maybe they did need that 2 hour and 44-minute runtime. But what I thought about the movie as a whole was that it was very good, very well done. The mood was set great. The scenery, everything done was just excellent. You can tell the people who worked on this movie really cared about it. They really cared about the story, the look, the mythos, everything. And it wasn't just another notch in the Blade Runner's franchise. And I know I shit on Ridley Scott a lot, but from a producer standpoint, he still knows how to pick them and knows where to put his money when it comes to a project. But he can still do that from an old folks home. I was never advocating that he stop producing, just directing. I'm so glad, because this movie could have been fucked. And they definitely set this movie up for a sequel. And I certainly hope Ridley doesn't want to do that. I hope he continues this trend of picking good people to continue on the projects that he has created. Do I think you need to see the first Blade Runner to really appreciate this movie? No, but it will definitely bolster the experience. I think newcomers to this series are going to be really impressed with this movie. Or a lot of people, you know, like the people like the Transformer franchise or fucking Michael Bay movies, shit like that, they aren't going to like this movie at all. But a lot of people who are more into film and more into the artistic side of it are going to be really into this movie, and it will obtain its cult status. Like I said earlier, Ryan Gosling fucking killed it. Jared kind of did his whole overacting, hammed it way up, and was speaking in riddles and all kinds of shit. He looked great, very menacing, but just knowing what Jared Leto looks like and sounds like, and then hearing that voice coming out of his head, like, just not buying it for a second. His henchman, though, the love replicant, she was excellent. She was kind of all over the place as far as emotional things go. Like, her emotions didn't quite match with her actions, and that's kind of a replicant hallmark, is they can't really do emotions very well. to where when she had to do something that was very fucked up, you would see her, like, a tear come out of her face, which I thought was a really nice addition, because replicants, these new breeds of replicants that Wallace is putting out have an overriding obedience that they'll even have to act against their own self-preservation. Obedience completely trumps any kind of feelings they might have. And you can see that come through her face when Wallace orders her around to go do something fucked up. And, like, you can see her, like, struggling with it, but then go do it. But at the same time, when she's murdering somebody, you can see on her face she kind of really enjoys it. Joy, I gave a lot of shit to Ana de Armas for this, just because she wasn't a real person. She was just a kind of a device there to give Ryan a something to act off of while we're waiting for him to figure shit out. But for what she was given, she did all right. And Harrison Ford is just Harrison Ford. I mean, he's entertaining as fuck to watch, even if it is the same old grumpy dude in every sequel he's done. All the supporting cast and everybody involved in acting on the film, you could tell they were just putting their best foot forward, and it really shows on the delivery and just makes this film that much more enjoyable. As for a rating system, I don't really have one worked out for this yet. I don't know if I want to be like everybody else and give it like a 1 out of 10 scale or some other weird system of rating. All I'm going to say for this is go see the movie. Just go see it. It's definitely worth the money you pay at the theater to do it, and it'll be worth the money to buy it on DVD when it comes out. I will say, though, that avoid anything 3D, which is kind of a rule of thumb for going to see anything at the theater. 3D is bullshit. But definitely see it in HD, because you want all that detail and you want all the fine-tooth stuff, like all the little tiny nooks and crannies. Speaking of nooks and crannies, the look of this film was very different from the first one, where the first one looked like everything, the whole universe was made out of salvaged shit, which was pretty much every space movie at that time. But this one was much more polished. You had a lot of smooth walls, and the universe wasn't as populated as it was in the first one. But given the backstory and the featurettes and the tiny movies they put out before this to explain what happened, the way all of that's done is, you know, it all makes sense, and it works very well for the film. So yeah, I loved it. I'm gonna buy it as soon as it comes out because I want to see it again. I tried watching a bootleg Cam Cotton. Don't fucking do that. Give these people their money because they deserve it. They definitely deserve it. Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you like the long synopsis I did, that was a ton of work. So I can shrink it down if you like, or whatever. Or I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Don't have an upload schedule. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting started here. Thank you for watching. I don't know what movie I'm going to do next. But definitely hit that like and subscribe button, and then go ahead and hit the bell too so you can get a notification when I put out the next one, because I want YouTube money.